Reverse Reverend here doing my late review of last week's One Piece chapter. No delays, let's just jump into it. One Piece chapter 879, Big Mom Commander Katakuri. The cover page is Sai getting beat up by his ex-fiance and nobody cares. So the first part of the chapter is the crew reacting to Pedro's death. Everyone is sad. Brook, Nami, Chopper, and Carrot are all crying. Jimbei then yells at them and gives a speech about how they're all alive thanks to Pedro. He understood how desperate the situation was and that he would want them to push forward. Jimbei says that Luffy understood that, which is why he's putting his life on the line to take on someone with a billion bounty like Katakuri. He then says that they have to keep going because Big Mom's crew is eventually going to catch up to them, and Big Mom's still going to be giving chase herself. The crew reacts by getting amped up, and they all start doing their jobs to help steer the ship. They make a straight break for the rendezvous point with Sanji. We then see Big Mom appearing to walk on water. Then we find out she's not walking on water, she's walking on a candy sea slug that Perospero created. We then see Perospero is obviously upset, but he's more annoyed at the humiliation that the Straw Hats and Pedro have caused them than actually losing his arm, because he can just replace it with candy. I think this is a really cool part of the chapter. I'll get into more on Perospero and his character in the discussion. He then says the shame they caused is unforgivable. Napoleon the Hat says where he's from, criminals like that don't survive that long. I did not realize until seeing others review it and going back and reading it myself that Napoleon was actually the one talking here. But we'll talk about that also in the discussion portion of the chapter. Perospero also comments on Zeus not being there, as it's his job normally to carry Big Mom across the ocean. We then see that Zeus and Prometheus are both lost or stuck on the shoreline of Whole Cake Island, and Prometheus comments that he wants to eat some fire to regain some of his strength, which is obviously going to be an important point about Prometheus later on. We then see Pound, who is somehow on a ship. I'm not sure how he got it, if it's his boat, if he stole it, whatever. He spots Chiffon on the carpet and yells out her name. Doesn't matter. I'm sure Pound's gonna obviously show up towards the end of this arc and be more relevant. Oda wouldn't just throw him in there, but right now he's not really relevant. He sees Chiffon and yells her name. We then skip to Chiffon putting in Sanji on the carpet. Lola was apparently the Minister of Chocolate before she left, and that's kind of the main point we get from here. And then Pudding does her dual personality thing, and it's annoying, and Oda hasn't explained it yet, and until he explains it, it's still going to be more annoying than funny. Even if he does explain it, it might still just be really annoying. But yeah, so they're approaching Cacao Island. That's really all that's going on at that point. We then go to the Mirror World, where Luffy is fighting Katakuri, who is mimicking all his attacks using his own Mochi Mochi fruit. He starts off by mimicking Hawk Gatling. Katakuri mentions that he can do anything Luffy can do, but with greater speed and power. Luffy then tries a Hawk Stamp. Katakuri then dodges it, and then Luffy dodges Katakuri's counter, but Katakuri predicts where Luffy's going to dodge to, and his second kick sends him flying. We have the chapter ending with Katakuri copying Luffy's elephant gun, but Katakuri's version is far bigger and stronger, and it beats Luffy's. He then comments that his attack should be enough to take care of an elephant gun, implying he predicted the attack Luffy was going to do and how much power he would need to stop it. Seemingly just asking Luffy, like, does this not get through to you that I'm more powerful? So that's basically the rundown of the chapter. There's several important points I want to go over. Important points are Jinbei taking the lead now that Luffy's gone, and Jinbei is the oldest and most mature person. Actually, he's not the oldest. He's the most mature person and strongest person left on the ship. And so he has to take the lead, because Zoro and Sanji aren't there. I think that shows that his role, like other people have said, is going to be as another leader on the ship. He could become part of the big trio, which I think very likely is going to become a big Yonko. No, I'm kidding. A big group of four. Whatever a group of four is, you kind of see his attitude is very similar to Sanji and Zoro when they need to step up. The next thing is Perospero's ability and his character. I thought he was kind of a weirdo. I still think he is, but after finding out he has a 700 million bounty, I was pretty impressed. But then Luffy kind of easily beats all his attacks. But then again, his candy is weak to fire, and different devil fruits have different weaknesses. And so that doesn't bother me as much because we've still seen the scale of stuff that he can create and the versatility of his fruit. We see it again here with the sea slug. I would like to know if he's awakened. I think he is. I don't think he's shown it yet, but I do think he has an awakening. But the fact that he just casually creates an arm, and he's not as pissed that his arm was destroyed as he is that he's not going to be able to drink tea without his arm melting, and that's going to piss him off because it's going to remind him of what happened with Pedro and the Straw Hats. He talks about how the humiliation is far worse. It's more about his reputation than the fact his arm was just completely blown off and gone. He's just like, screw it, I'll create another one. I just want to make sure that they suffer for the humiliation, not for my arm. We knew he was a really vindictive and bad person, but we really see this vindictiveness kind of carved into his character. And he's talking to Napoleon, the hat that Big Mom wears, who's one of her three main homies. I thought it was interesting, and a lot of other people pointed out that Napoleon says in his country, criminals like the Straw Hats and Pedro are always punished. And so I don't know what he means by his country because we don't know exactly when Napoleon was gotten by Big Mom, like the actual hat itself. From what we know, Napoleon has Big Mom's soul inside of it. So is Napoleon talking about the hat where she got Napoleon? Or is he talking about the fact that Big Mom came from Elbaf? Or I don't know. I would like some clarification for that. I think the clarification on the homies is going to come later on. I don't think it's going to come this arc. There might be a little bit more about them. I think we'll find out more about the homies later. One important point we do find out about Prometheus is that he seemingly needs to eat fire to gain power, which makes sense because we saw Zeus got all that power and charged up from eating Nami's thunderballs. It would make sense that Prometheus gets power from eating fire. We're going to learn more about that later, but I thought it was really interesting about Napoleon in the country and Prometheus talking about needing to eat fire. And then also the fact that it was noted that Zeus is the one who carries Big Mom over the ocean. Then we jump to the main, not the main point of the chapter, because it was only the last portion of the chapter, but it's the most important part of the chapter, I think. We jump to Luffy versus Katakuri, and Katakuri obviously has the advantage with his Kenbonshu no Haki. I think I said that right. And his ability to predict Luffy's moves. He does it to show how much stronger and faster he is than Luffy. So every time Luffy has an attack, he mirrors it bigger or faster and stronger and overwhelms all of Luffy's attacks. And he kind of just tells Luffy, look, anything you can do with your ability, I can do with mine. It's obviously a motif being set up that it's mirror attacks in the mirror world, and that it's been mentioned now by multiple characters that their fruits are similar and their abilities are similar. So it's going to be interesting to see what the limit of his mimicking of Luffy is. Like, I don't think Mochi has the properties of Gear 4, but then again, he doesn't have the properties of Gear 2nd. It seems like he uses his own physical strength to match Gear 2nd or Gear 3rd without inflating his arm or increasing his blood flow. He just increases his physical power, and that manifests in the fruit instead of having to manipulate his body a certain type of way. It'll be interesting to see if he can either copy Gear 4, if he's strong enough that he can just mimic it using his own power, kind of like how he's seemingly been doing against the Elephant Gun and the Hawk Gatling. It'll be cool to see his limits, if he even has limits when it comes to mimicking Luffy's fruit, or if he can even surpass Gear 4 just using his fruit, or if he even needs to copy Gear 4. I'll be very surprised if Gear 4 overwhelms him, considering Cracker was able to hold his own against it until Nami weakened the armor with her rain. So I'd be very surprised if Gear 4 does much at all. I do think we're going to find out that Katakuri does have an awakened devil fruit, and I'll be very surprised if from now on the rest of the villains that Luffy fights don't have awakened devil fruits. It'll be interesting to see it. I think we will see it later this fight. Another important point to bring up is, apart from the fact that Luffy is getting beat up badly by Katakuri, he's been beat up badly throughout the arc, whether it's through Sanji or through Big Mom's army. Katakuri hasn't been injured at all this entire arc. So even if Luffy found a way to become stronger and be able to match or overcome Katakuri's power, I would hope that Oda still considers the fact Katakuri's not injured whatsoever, and Luffy's been fighting. Lastly, to get to what do I think is going to happen with this fight, I do think Luffy's going to end up drawing with him or beating him. I actually still think he's going to beat him. The only chance he would have would be an awakening, I think. But again, I think Katakuri has an awakening of his own, and he's probably far better at it than Luffy is. So the only other thing, Katakuri's kind of seeming like he has everything that Luffy has. He has a fruit, but he's more experienced at using it, and he can mimic all of Luffy's abilities. And he has Kinbouchi no Haki, which is better than Luffy's, and then his armament Haki is either equal or better than Luffy's. The one thing that he probably does not have would be Conqueror's Haki. And now, Conqueror's Haki is very cool to see it knock out weaklings, but we haven't really seen it do much besides that. We've seen it kind of spark when he clashed with Don Chin Yao and Doflamingo, but I think there's more to it than that, and I think this would be a perfect chance for Luffy to be able to use it. So if he does use some type of Conqueror's Haki ability in this fight, it could easily make sense that he did it here and not in any of the other arcs since the time skip. On Fishman Island, he was too close to Shirahoshi. Punk Hazard, he was again too close to his crewmates and everybody else. And then on Dressrosa, he was fighting Doflamingo again in a confined space. And so my idea would be, now that he's in Mirror World and there's no one who he cares about that's in danger, he might have an ability like Rayleigh mentioned. If you can't control your Conqueror's Haki, you use it, you can hurt other people. Knocking him out would suck, but it doesn't seem like it's really damaging. I'm thinking he could have an ability like how Shanks was able to damage Whitebeard's ship. I think he may be able to actually do physical damage with his Conqueror's Haki, but it's something he has no control over or very limited control over. So he hasn't used it before because he really could injure some of his crew or some of his allies and friends. But now that he's secluded in the mirror world with just Katakuri and a bunch of Big Mom fodder, I think he could be free to use it, and that would be a way that he could end up beating Katakuri. And it's also the fact that Katakuri mentioned that he can sense that Luffy could become a threat to Big Mom in the future, and what would be more of a threat than somebody who has the ability of a king. Not sure if they know Luffy has Conqueror's Haki. Can't remember if it got reported during Marineford. I would be surprised if Big Mom and Katakuri don't know that. And I think that probably is part of what goes into Katakuri saying that Luffy could become a danger to Big Mom in the future. But anyways, I do think that's something to keep in mind and something that Oda could have happen that's besides awakening. Luffy uses an ability of Conqueror's Haki that he can't fully control, but it gives him a massive boost in fighting ability. He just can't control it and didn't want to risk using it before and injuring other people. But now there's no risk of injuring anyone else. Let me know what you guys think of that theory. If you like this review, subscribe, like it, and leave a comment in the comment section about what you think is going to be the end to the Luffy vs. Katakuri fight, as well as comments on how I can improve my videos. Thank you guys, and I'll see you later.